Starting off this countdown, we have the famine. According to ancient Indian texts, in the future, the world will be, and I quote, harassed by famine and excessive taxes. People will resort to eating leaves, roots, flesh, wild honey, fruits, flowers, and seeds. Struck by drought, they will become completely ruined. Isn't that great? I hope you guys all enjoy eating roots and leaves. How nutritious. So this can be interpreted as so. A drought will affect our crops, causing them to die off. The food that we do still have will be taxed incredibly high, so only the rich will be able to obtain it. Others will have to fend for themselves, eating whatever is available to eat, like leaves and roots and flesh. I'm not sure if that was a reference to like other humans' flesh. I mean, we would have to be in a really dark place for humans to start eating each other. Now, these texts aren't the only one that predicted this. Even Nostradamus predicted a worldwide famine and drought. So could it be that this is in store for us in the future? Moving on at number 9, we have the Kali Yuga. And if you guys are liking this video so far and you want to see more videos like it, then smash that like button. So in Hinduism, they believe that time is comprised of 4 great seasons, or yugas. The final one being Kali Yuga, which is said to be the worst. It's filled with disaster and conflict and sin. Not only that, but it's believed that we are currently in this yuga, meaning the worst is yet to come. This is just the beginning of the Dark Age. In this time, it's said that we are being led by wealth, but wealth is led by deceit and corruption. Well, ain't that true? Not only that, but war conflict will increase as well as diseases will be running rampant. Again, both very true, so we're about to go through hell for the next little bit. Moving on at number 8, we have the pandemic. And I know everyone is tired of talking about it, but it could just be that these ancient texts were trying to warn us about it. And if we are indeed in the Kali Yuga, then it makes sense as to why we are hit by a big pandemic. So during the Kali Yuga, it is said that many diseases will spread worldwide. Well, we got hit by COVID-19 and then all the other variants that formed from the virus mutating. So could this be what they were referring to? Some believe that this is true. Coming in at number 7, we have the thieves. This is another scary prediction for the Kali Yuga. And I quote, cities will be dominated by thieves. Vedas will be contaminated by speculative interpretations of atheists. Political leaders will virtually consume the citizens, and the so-called priests and intellectuals will be devotees of their bellies and genitals. Now, everyone interprets this differently. One thing for sure, people will go against the rules of society. Some will steal, others will go against their beliefs, and people of power will try and take full control over society. In our 6th spot today, we have the cloning. People believe that the Mahabharata predicted cloning and the development of growing babies outside of the womb. Let's take a look at the birth story of Kauravas. Basically, it's about a mother who gives birth to 100 sons. Kind of. So basically, after 2 years of pregnancy, she gave birth to a hard piece of lifeless flesh that was not a baby, clearly. But she was devastated because she had been promised 100 sons. But she was told to not get rid of this piece of flesh. They then went on to cut the pieces into 100 different pieces and place them in jars. Then they eventually grew into 100 sons. And scientists now have the ability to grow babies outside of the wombs. Although they haven't fully, done it yet for ethical reasons. But they fertilize an egg in a container type thing and then place it in an artificial womb to grow. People see the parallels between this and believe that this story predicted the future. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with World War III. So remember when I was talking about the Kali Yuga? Well, there is said to be a 3rd world war during the end of this cycle. It's said that 1,200 million people worldwide will lose their lives as a result. But when the war is finished and society reaches the point of no return, Kalki avatar Vishnu will show himself and save the world. He will provide society with a much-needed cleansing. He then will usher mankind into the golden age and bring everyone to a higher plane. In our 4th spot today, we have the power and superficial attraction. This is another prediction that has appeared to come true. According to the Vishnu Purana, property alone will confer rank. Wealth will be the only source of devotion. Passion will be the sole bond of union between the sexes. Falsehood will be the only means of success in litigation, and women will be objects merely of sensual gratification. Earth will be venerated but for its mineral treasures. Basically, it's saying that all anyone will start to care about is wealth and being perceived as wealthy, which is very true in today's society. I mean, take a look at all the influencers that have faked being famous or wealthy for attention. They pretend that they're living this luxurious lifestyle when they're not. But that's not all. It also states that law and justice will be applied only on the basis of one's power. This is also true. People with connections and money get away with almost everything. They just buy their way out of jail. And lastly, it said that men and women will live together merely because of superficial attraction, and success in business will depend on deceit. Again, very true. It's all about looking the part, being with someone that looks good beside you versus who you truly love. It's a very sad reality. In our third spot today, we have Nostradamus and the Kalki Avatar. It's believed that famous prophet and seer Nostradamus had some visions of the Kalki Avatar. In his work, Centuries, Nostradamus talks about a savior from the east that comes down from his throne and strikes the evil ones with his rod. While the depictions of Kalki in Hinduism show him on a horse with a sword, much like in Nostradamus' vision. Not only that, but Nostradamus said that this being celebrates a holy day on Thursday. In Hinduism, Vishnu is worshipped on Thursdays. Not only that, he said that the person will be born of 3 water signs: Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio, which could be referenced to the Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and the Arabian Sea. But wait, there's more. Nostradamus said that this being will arrive during a great war after decades of suffering. Well, the Kalki Avatar is said to come during the World War of Kali Yuga. So it's crazy. Could it be that Nostradamus was having visions of the Kalki Avatar? In our second spot today, we have the Torment. This next prediction is quite depressing, not gonna lie. Again, this is another prediction for Kali Yuga. It says, and I quote, "The citizens will suffer greatly from cold, wind, heat, rain, and snow. They will be further tormented by quarrels, hunger, thirst, disease, and severe anxiety. Clouds will be full of lightning, homes will be devoid of piety, and all human beings will have become like asses. By the time the age of Kali ends, the bodies of all creatures will be greatly reduced in size." Like I've said before, some believe that we are currently in this yuga, whereas others believe it won't happen for thousands of more years. What we do know is that if and when it happens, it's not gonna be pretty. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the lifespan. I got more bad news for you guys. Apparently, during the Kali Yuga, the duration of human life will dramatically shorten. People won't be living until their 80s or 90s. Nope. It's said that the average lifespan of a person will be their 50s. Why is that? Well, the texts say that health will be majorly ignored, as fast-paced lifestyles will make everybody unhealthy, reducing the average human lifespan. This is eerily accurate. As a society, we are focused on money and are working ourselves to death. There's hardly any time to enjoy life when we're forced to go to school, study our butts off, get a degree, then get a job that pays well. Then before you know it, you're working 9 to 5, working your buns off and constantly exhausted. Well, all this stress and anxiety can shorten your lifespan. It's crazy and scary. Starting off this countdown, we have the 6th seal. In the book of Revelation, the 7 seals are the apocalyptic visions seen by John of Patmos. And apparently we have one more prophecy to fulfill before we reach the 7th seal, which marks the end of the world. One seal that we have fulfilled is the 6th seal. The 6th seal talks about an earthquake followed by the sun turning black and the moon turning blood red and mountains and islands disappearing underwater. Well, many believe that this happened with the Lisbon earthquake in November of 1755. A very disastrous earthquake caused a tsunami, and that covered cities. Then 25 years later in New England, the sun was completely blacked out by noon, and they call it New England's Dark Day. That's not all though. Over the years, we have had a number of blood moons where the moon appears red. So that right there fulfills all of the points in this 6th seal, meaning we are now on to the 7th seal, the final one. In our 9th spot, we have the earthquakes and food shortages. Matthew 24:7 says, and I quote, For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be food shortages and earthquakes in one place after another. Food shortages and food security still impacts millions of people. It's said that 1 in 9 people go to bed hungry each night. 1 in 3 suffer from some form of malnutrition. On top of that, over 3 million people die each year from hunger. Not only that, but in the future, we might experience even worse food shortages as we deplete our natural resources and destroy our earth. Luke 21:11 also talks about earthquakes and food shortages. The passage says, and I quote, "There will be great earthquakes, and in one place after another, food shortages and pestilences, and there will be fearful sights, and from heaven great signs." Well, every year the world faces around 50,000 earthquakes, and most recently we have been faced with larger, more destructive ones. Not only that, but Prophet Nostradamus predicts for an upcoming earthquake to wipe out and destroy all of California. So, maybe we should be concerned. In our 8th spot, we have the impending wars. Prior to Jesus' second coming, there will apparently be wars. This is according to the Gospel of Matthew, and I quote, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Then Matthew 24:12 talks about how with the increase in violence, people will become less loving. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. And with the tensions between Russia and the Ukraine, this war might be coming sooner than we thought. In our 7th spot, we have the persecution of Christians. Many believe that 3 prophecies must come to pass before Jesus comes back, one of them being the persecution of Christians. Revelation 12:17 states that, and I quote, "The dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." Basically, this is about people being shamed for worshiping God. Well, this is already coming to pass in countries like China. In 2018, Chinese Christians were being persecuted. 300 members lost their churches. Hundreds of CCP officers attacked the churches and destroyed the properties. Bibles and holy books were confiscated, and residents had to swap posters of the cross and Jesus with portraits of the president. In our 6th spot today, we have the mark. In the book of Revelation 13:16-17, it talks about a mark of the beast that people receive from the false prophet. And I quote, "It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." And this ultimately means that you have rejected God and you are now identifying with Satan. Well, some conspiracy theorists believe that the mark that the book was referring to are vaccines. Others believe it refers to smart technology or China's credit system. For smart technology, it's like the Apple Watch, where it has a microchip that can be used to track and monitor a person anywhere in the world at any time. I know it's wild, but some people actually do believe this. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Chernobyl. According to the book of Revelation, a number of things will happen at the end of days. One of them, including a star named Wormwood falling from the sky, poisoning a third of all rivers and water. Well, some people believe that this came true during the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster. Now, why is that? Well, the Ukrainian word Chernobyl is the name of a plant that is a close botanical cousin of wormwood. Plus, the disaster did poison the nearby rivers, just like the star is said to. Moving on to number 4, we have blood rain. Revelation 8:7 talks about how one of the signs that the end is near is through hail and fire mingled with blood. Well, since 2020, we have been seeing lots of excessive hailstorms all over the world. And on July 25th, 2001, a number of districts in India had red rain come pouring down on them. Seeing this rain made people flee their homes in panic. This strange rain fell from the sky for about 20 minutes. And to this day, scientists have yet come up with a simple explanation for the blood rain in this area. In our 3rd spot, we have global warming. Another prophecy from the book of Revelation says that the heavens will be on fire during the end of times. The scripture reads, and I quote, "But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up." Well, some people interpret this as the heating of our earth, aka climate change and global warming, which is a huge issue that we are facing. The world is heating at alarming rates, resulting in more disasters like forest fires and droughts. In our second spot, we have the plague. In the book of Revelation, the end of the world is preceded by widespread pestilence and plague. A number of people think the plague the book is talking about is currently happening with our pandemic, meaning the end is near. In the final chapters of the Bible, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse arrive to destroy the planet. The horsemen are religious deception, war, famine, and disease. The 4th horseman is literally called pestilence or plague. So people think that the horsemen are here currently. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the asteroids. Now let's say that the whole Chernobyl wormwood thing was just a coincidence, okay? You know what's not a coincidence? An asteroid known as wormwood said to come to Earth in 2022. That's right. Revelation 8:10-11 literally says, and I quote, "A great star fell from heaven burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood, and it just so happens that this year, on May 6th, NASA says that an asteroid named Wormwood might strike Earth." Like, this is one prediction that actually has me scared.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the King. When it comes to prophecies and predictions, Nostradamus is often the man people turn to, so of course there's going to be a few of his predictions on this list. To start off with, we have one that has to do with King Henry II, who is actually a personal acquaintance of the prophet himself. While at one point Nostradamus was seen addressing King Henry II as the most invincible Henry, King of France, unfortunately, Henry proved to be quite vincible when he met his gruesome death at age 40. In the summer of 1559, a terrible jousting accident gone wrong left the king passing away shortly after from sepsis. This is a terrible story, but I told it because many think that Nostradamus actually predicted it. The jousting accident saw the king having splinters driven into his eye and skull by one of his young soldiers, and the Nostradamus quatrain reads, quote, "The young lion will overcome the older one." It says that he will, quote, "pierce his eyes through a golden cage," and that, quote, "2 wounds will ensure a, quote, cruel death." So, I'm not saying he did, I'm just saying it's a little unbelievable. In our number 9 spot today, we have a terrible moment. When President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, it definitely was quite a pivotal moment for the United States, and like with any big event, people wanted to see if there were signs or indications that this was bound to happen. When people began doing this, they of course came across the words of trusty old Nostradamus, and that really made them question if perhaps there really was an accurate prediction. The most common contender for a line that accurately predicted this moment is one that reads, quote, "From on high evil will fall on the great man." Many people believe that this perhaps is a reference to the fact that he was shot from a distance. More interestingly, the quatrain continues on to say, quote, "A dead innocent will be accused of the deed." This is in fact interesting because it plays into the popular theory that the man accused of this act, Lee Harvey Oswald, was not actually guilty. I'm definitely not suggesting that this theory is true, I'm just merely expressing that people often cite this quatrain because of those unusual coincidences. In our number 8 spot today, we have the fire. So for this Nostradamus prophecy, let's start out with the quatrain in question. It reads, quote, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London, burnt through lightning of 23's the 6. The ancient lady will fall from her high place, several of the same sect will be killed." There are many people who believe that this quatrain was actually one that predicted the Great Fire of London that occurred in 1666. So basically, people think this so much in part because of the fact that if you take the line 23's the 6 and times 20 by 3 and then add 6, you get 66, and it also mentions London and there's a reference to death. I mean, it's ambiguous, but that is no different than most other ancient prophecies, so I definitely understand why people believe that this really is the case. In our number 7 spot today, we have the work week. 100 years ago, W.L. George made a series of predictions for what he believed the world would be like now in 2022, and this is one that hasn't fully yet been seen, but it's definitely something that is in the works in some places. The prediction reads, quote, "Americans will be less enterprising and much more pleasure-loving. They will have rebelled against long hours, the chances are that in 2022, few people will work more than 7 hours a day, if as much. The effect of this, which I'm sure sounds regrettable to many of my readers, will, in my opinion, be good. This is actually a really interesting one. Not only is it very cool and interesting to see someone having predicted this kind of thing all the way back in 1922, which is before the Second World War, but it's actually a huge topic of conversation right now. There are many places around the world that are cutting back their work weeks to lesser days or lesser hours, and to be honest, it's still a really controversial thing. In our number 6 spot today, we have an earthquake. Nostradamus actually had a prediction to do with natural disasters for this year, and it's entirely possible that it actually did come true. Nostradamus is said to have predicted that this year, Japan would have an earthquake that would strike in the middle of the day. Listen, it wasn't in the middle of the day, but not too long ago on March 16th, a strong and deadly earthquake struck just off of the coast of Fukushima, Japan, and it was measured at a 7.4 magnitude. Following this event, a 30-centimeter tsunami was also recorded. In the aftermath of the disaster, it was reported that there were 225 injuries and sadly 4 deaths as a result. It truly is a terrifying reality whether it was predicted or not. In our number 5 spot today, we have technology. It is no secret that Nikola Tesla was certainly a man ahead of his time. He is known for his brain and scientific advancements and creations, so it's no wonder that he was able to have some incredibly accurate predictions years before they were to become realistic. More than 60 years before the first cell phone and 90 years before Wi-Fi existed, he is said to have predicted the existence of these 2 modern staples. He is quoted as saying, "It will soon be possible to transmit wireless messages all over the world so simply that any individual can carry and operate his own apparatus." I mean, in our world, it's hard to imagine these things not existing, but back then, it really was more of an unbelievable feat than we can fully realize. In our number 4 spot today, we have From Earth to the Moon. Of course, the Apollo 11 astronauts made history when they became the first people to set foot on the moon. I mean, the famous quote really is true: "One small step for man, a giant leap for mankind." It was absolutely mind-boggling at the time that this technology was possible. Sending people up into space. Who would have thought? Well, to be honest, Jules Verne did back in 1865. Over a century before the step actually took place, Jules Verne wrote about 2 men who were bound for the moon when they were on board a projectile that was fired from a cannon. It was written in his novel From Earth to the Moon, and maybe Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong weren't fired from a cannon, but it is still quite an interesting prediction for the time nonetheless. To make it even more interesting, in the novel Jules placed the rocket launch in Florida, which would, again, over a century later, become the site of the Kennedy Space Center. In our number 3 spot today, we have debit cards. Okay, debit cards have gone from swiping to chips being inserted to tap, and now they can just be on your phone. You don't even need the card anymore. They've had quite the progression and are such a staple that it's hard to picture a time without them. Well, back in the time before they existed, people were imagining a time with them. Debit cards became widely used in the late 1980s, but back in 1888, Edward Bellamy was dreaming of them. In his utopian novel Looking Backward, 2000 to 1887, a character explains to another character that in the new world, quote, "A credit corresponding to his share of the annual product of the nation is given to every citizen, and a credit card issued him with which he procures at the public storehouses whatever he desires." I'm just saying, the man had quite the point all the way back in 1888. In our number 2 spot today, we have Mark Twain. Okay, so there's a lot of things that would be fun to predict accurately, like the outcome of your favorite reality show when the person you like the most wins, or your favorite football team winning the Super Bowl. You know what wouldn't be fun though? Predicting your own death. Back in 1909, Mark Twain's biographer Albert Bigelow Paine quoted Mark as saying, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year and I expect to go out with it. It will be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't. The Almighty said, no doubt. Now here are these 2 unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." I mean, whether that was accurate or not, it was a hell of a prediction, but it turns out that it was pretty right on the money. In the end, Mark passed away on April 21st, 1910, just a day after the comet had returned. In our number 1 spot today, we have modern medicine. Okay, organ transplant is a really important part of medicine nowadays, and it surely has saved countless lives. I mean, we're now at the point where we're making artificial organs that may actually be completely functional, which is insane. But what if I told you that 300 years before the first major organ transplant occurred, there was someone out there predicting that it would happen? Robert Boyle, known as the father of modern chemistry, made a list of predictions and really hopes of what he thought medicine could potentially achieve, and this is when he thankfully got quite right. Other predictions he made includes the prolongation of life and the recovery of youth. If he could help us out with that last one, I'm sure we'd all thank him. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the Hunting Cave painting. This painting comes to us from an astonishing 44,000 years ago and was found on the wall of a cave on an Indonesian island. Researchers were able to date this painting that far back due to the fact that the cave it was found in is still a living cave, which means that rock formations have been growing over the painting, and by being able to date those, they know it is at least 43,900 years old, but it could potentially be even older. The painting features what looks like a hunting scene with 4 wild pigs, some small buffalo, and a group of really small hunters with spears. The strange thing about these hunters, other than their size, is the fact that they're all human and animal hybrids. They all have elongated faces like an animal snout, and a lot of them have tails. There is even one tiny human thing that has a beak. We don't really know why they depicted the hunters this way or why the animals are so much larger than them. There also were no other usual signs of human life found in the cave, such as bones or hunting tools, so this cave may have acted as some sort of special or sacred spot for them, and while it definitely holds a lot of secrets, we may never get the chance to know most of them. In our number 9 spot today, we have lizard hands. In 2002, in a cave discovered in the western deserts of Egypt, researchers found tons of paintings on the walls thought to be dated back at least 8,000 years, if not even longer. The paintings feature animals, humans, and sometimes headless creatures, which led to the cave being nicknamed the Cave of the Beasts. But there are also hundreds of handprints outlined, which are both very cool and very eerie. The most unusual of the handprints, however, are the 13 that are extremely tiny. This would be endearing and very cute, but what was once thought of as tiny little baby hands are actually not even human at all. An anthropologist realized this in 2006 when she discovered that they were much too small and the fingers were much too long. It is thought that these handprints may belong to lizards or perhaps baby crocodiles, but we still aren't really sure. It is definitely interesting and kind of fascinating to see all of these handprints on the walls of the cave, but it definitely carries a mystery that we may never know the answers to. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Magura Cave. This is a cave that is actually one of the largest in Bulgaria, and it is located in the northwest area of the country. This cave is filled with prehistoric paintings that date back somewhere between 8,000 and 4,000 years ago. Through the research into this cave, around 700 drawings have been found on the walls, and they depict a wide variety of scenes. These paintings were created using bat excrement. I mean, you're in a cave, you gotta make do with the resources you have. It's not like they could just walk over to Michael's and grab a brand new paint set. The paintings mostly depict different hunting scenes, as well as scenes of people dancing and celebrating. Honestly, I just wish for one day that I could understand the mind of an early human and understand what these paintings were meant to symbolize. Maybe it was meant to show something, and maybe they just liked art. Who knows for sure. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is a painting that comes all the way from at least 7,000 years ago. The painting is the main part of a mural that is located in Utah's Horseshoe Canyon. I know, it's not exactly a cave, but it's close, and it's a cool ancient painting. The entire mural is huge, as it is 300 feet long and features around 80 figures, and it was likely painted by ancient nomads. The techniques they used to create this image was by filling their mouths with red ochre tinted paint and then spraying it out onto the sandstone. This is all super cool to learn about, but here's the kind of creepy thing. No one knows why these paintings were created or what they represent. It is possible that maybe they just like to paint, but it is kind of crazy to think about what this figure could have meant to them. Was it part of a legend? Was it something they saw in real life? Was it a prediction of things to come? This is just one of those mysteries that unfortunately is buried with the people of the past, and we are just left to speculate exactly what this could be about. In our number 6 spot today, we we have the Brazil caves. This is an interesting cave painting because of the fact that it is widely debated when exactly it was created. The Serra de Capivara National Park is located in eastern Brazil, and it is the home to a bunch of different rock shelters that are decorated with incredible and elaborate cave paintings. This area includes scenes of rituals, hunting, trees, and animals, and some scientists believe that the oldest of the paintings dates back to at least 25,000 years ago. There are others who debate this because that would go against what we currently believe is the date of human settlement in the Americas, but hey, we weren't there, so who knows? In our number 5 spot today we have the vandalized cave painting. This painting is the oldest known painting in India, and it was found on the walls and ceiling of the Sittanavasal cave. It was originally believed that this painting was first created in the 1st century BCE. The paintings depict things like human figures, fish, elephants, birds, and different floral patterns. It is said that another artist ended up drawing over the original, which is an incredible shame and truly just rude. These paintings have been severely vandalized, and a lot of the areas are in quite bad shape. There's something about things that are this old that makes me feel like they should just not be messed with at all. Not only because it's rude, but also because you just never know what kind of things they may hold. In our number 4 spot today we have the droughts. Ancient drawings and writings were found covering the walls of the Dayu cave, which is located in central China, and a lot of them detail different droughts and such that were experienced during the time of their writing. According to these drawings, people would come to the cave for either water or to pray for rain in times of drought. The writings reveal some of the horrors that the people of the time experienced while going through these periods of drought, including severe starvation, social instability, and conflict between government and citizens. While these cave writings show us a different time in history, difficult time in history, researchers say that these stalagmites are formed by dripping water and they form rings, sort of like how trees do, and these rings can give us insights into different things. Based on the patterns of these rings, scientists were able to corroborate the things that the cave writings were saying, but they were also able to make a grim prediction for the future, which is unfortunately that this region may again see one of these catastrophic droughts, this time in the late 2030s. In our number 3 spot today we have daydreaming. The paintings at the Lascaux caves are perhaps some of the most famous ancient cave paintings of all time. They date back to some 17,000 years ago, and a lot of the art seen on the walls of the cave is art that depicts animals. About 900 of them, with 605 being pretty identifiable. There are cattle, bison, some wild cats, bears, birds, but there's one weird thing. There's no reindeer, and there were definitely reindeer in the area at the time, and there's evidence that reindeer meat was used for food, so why didn't they draw any? Well, our best theory as to why is that perhaps these drawings and paintings are depicting animals that the humans at the time were daydreaming of. The animals that were too fast or too strong, or that they didn't have effective weapons for. The drawings showing what life could be like if only these humans had more. Does that sound familiar to any of us? Because I think it definitely should. In our number 2 spot today we have astronomy masters. This is a point that doesn't discuss just one cave painting in particular, but it's something that has been seen throughout many that have been discovered, and even in some of the oldest ever found. What I'm talking about is the early humans and their complex understanding of astronomy. A common theme among ancient cave paintings is the depiction of animals, but what was previously thought of as just a drawing is now being realized that instead of just animal symbols, they may actually be used to represent star constellations in the night sky, and the paintings of them may be used to represent dates or mark events such as comet strikes. I mean, for a second, imagine being an early human having no concept of science and looking at the night sky with no light pollution. It totally makes sense why they would try and keep track of these things, not to mention how terrifying would a comet or meteor be when you have no idea what they are. Researchers have been able to find thousands of sites and symbols that span through thousands of years that seem to be using the same sophisticated level of astronomy. It is likely that this understanding is exactly why human migration and navigation of the open seas was possible. Their brilliance truly was crucial to how we evolved as humans. In our number 1 spot today we have Lascaux. Lascaux is a complex of caves and different rock shelters that are located in northwestern Somalia. These caves and rock shelters contain some of the earliest known art in the Horn of Africa, and really just on the continent in general, which is quite the feat considering the rich history of humans in Africa. I mean, It's where we evolved into humans after all. These prehistoric cave paintings show cows in ceremonial robes accompanied by humans, they show domesticated dogs, and even a giraffe, which I personally love. These paintings are actually very well preserved, which is fantastic, and they retain clear outlines and vibrant colors, which really gives us a clearer look into the lives of the people who created them. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Neanderthal art. Back in 2018, it was announced that one of the oldest ever known cave paintings made by Neanderthals was found in the Spanish caves of La Pasiega, Maltaviso, and Ardales. This art is said to be around 64,000 years old, and to be honest, it's quite abstract, which may not be all that surprising. Archaeologists found things like drawings of ladder-like lines, hand stencils, and a stalagmite structure decorated with ochre. It is thought that the Neanderthals that created this art left it in a location that they viewed as special. I mean, many of the hand stencils appear in this smaller, hard-to-reach area of the cave, which means that the person who made them would have had to prepare not only the pigment but also some sort of source of light prior to entering the cave. It was certainly a deliberate act. My favorite thing about this art though is the symbolism. It is said that, quote, "The significance of the painting is not to know that Neanderthals could paint, it's the fact that they were engaging in symbolism, and that's probably related to an ability to have language." Like, basically this was almost their way of communicating. This was their way of leaving behind a story. I don't know. I just think that's very cool and also a very important stepping stone in terms of early language development. It is said that researchers are looking into the acoustics of the area now where the cave art is located because they are interested to see whether the placement of the art had anything to do with the sounds people could make or hear in the particular spot. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Bhimbetka rock shelters. There are a collection of rock shelters that are known in central India known as the Bhimbetka, and they contain over 600 different paintings that span through the prehistoric, Paleolithic, and Mesolithic periods, which is truly unbelievable. The oldest of all of the paintings that can be found here is thought to date back to around 12,000 years ago. The paintings here are basically what you'd expect, as it reflects the sort of lives around the people who made them. The paintings show us a glimpse into what their lives looked like, and they also show an array of animals that these people crossed, such as tigers, lions, and crocodiles. One really exceptional thing about this art is that it shows us the sort of transition into the Stone Age that these people had. The art moves from depicting dances and rituals to hunting scenes with the tools that they were able to create. It gives us just a tiny glimpse into the evolution of humankind in that area all those years ago. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Tadvart-Akakis. Probably said that horribly wrong. This is a mountain range that is located in the Sahara Desert of western Libya, and I guess the art is more rock art than cave art, but I mean, it's all incredibly fascinating regardless of where the rocks reside. Some of the art that can be found here is said to date back to at least 14,000 years ago, and most of the paintings or carvings are of animals that were in the area, such as giraffes, elephants, ostriches, and camels, but also of men and horses. The art found here was created over quite a span of time, which gives us a remarkable insight into the changes that happened throughout these years. The changes in the fauna and flora, but also the changes in the way of life of those who made them. They showed the differences of the different populations that ended up succeeding each other in the area and region of the Sahara. In our number 7 spot today, we have Ubur. This location is a group of rock outcrops that are located in the Kakadu National Park, which is a protected area in the Northern Territory of Australia. This location is likely to have become the site that it is due to the large rock overhangs, which would have provided the perfect shelter for the indigenous people of the land for thousands of years. It's super cool to think about why these early humans chose these specific spots for their art, and I mean, this one totally makes sense. Some of the art here is said to be 20,000 years old, and most of it depicts different animals such as catfish, snake-necked turtles, pig-nosed turtles, rock-haunting ringtail possums, wallabies, and even a Tasmanian tiger. Along with the extensive amount of rock art that can be seen here, there is also art that was found that was painted on the skeletons of animals in the area too, which is absolutely captivating and very intriguing. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Altamira cave. This cave is located in Spain, and it was renowned for the prehistoric art that it features. There are charcoal drawings and polychrome paintings that show some more contemporary and local fauna, as well as human hands. This art is striking and it truly is incredible, but another reason why this art is so exceptional is the fact that it was the first European cave paintings for which prehistoric origin was suggested. Many people disputed this for quite a while because it was thought that prehistoric humans weren't capable of abstract thought, but this was later disproved by similar art found years later that showed that it is absolutely possible that the early humans had these sort of capabilities. It is said that the earliest of the paintings found here can date back to the Upper Paleolithic period 36,000 years ago. In our number 5 spot today we have hand and footprints. Quite recently, a team of international scientists uncovered a pair of ancient hand and footprints that really changed our way of thinking and our understanding of early cave art. These impressions were discovered in the Tibetan Plateau and are thought to be somewhere between 169,000 to 226,000 years old, making them quite possibly the oldest art ever discovered. What's more is that they believe that this art was actually made by children. These hand and foot impressions appear to have been placed intentionally on an area of soft travertine, which is a form of terrestrial limestone. This travertine was deposited by water from what is now an inactive hot spring, but over time, as the travertine transformed into stone, it preserved these small hand and footprints. You might be wondering how we can determine hand and footprints as art, but experts say that we can determine this because the traces were not made during normal movement or to stabilize motion, and because, quote, care appears to have been taken with the composition, they qualify as an early act of cave art. In our number 4 spot today we have the Romanelli cave art. This art was found quite recently in the Romanelli cave, which is located in Italy. The first art in this cave was discovered more than 100 years ago, so these newer findings of this Stone Age art really is quite the discovery. This cave is located on Italy's southeast coast and is just 7 meters above the Adriatic Sea, which has made exploration of the cave quite difficult in the past. There was actually a collapse that happened inside of the cave which created more difficulties in the search. Through excavation of the cave, researchers have found deposits of animal bones, a small quantity of human bones, and several portable art objects such as stone fragments, and of course, the thing we're all here for today, just the art. The art that was found here includes a bovid, some geometric patterns which were made using, quote, moon milk, which is a soft white material that builds up in limestone caves, and art that depicts a bird, which is rare as birds were not usually depicted in the art that was normally found in the area during this time. The discovery gave some very valuable insights, as the fact that some of the images are layered over one another has shown that this cave was used for a much longer period of time than what was previously thought. In our number 3 spot today we have the Cave of El Castillo. The Cave of the Castle is a Stone Age rock shelter that is located in Spain, and it holds some of the oldest cave paintings we have ever found. The most notable of all of the art found here is referred to as the Gallery of Hands, which is a panel of abstract signs and hand stencil rock art that has been dated back to around 39,000 years ago. The lengthy cave holds over 100 different images, such as several rock engravings of deer, as well as images of other animals that would have been in the area like bison, goats, horses, and aurochs, which are a now extinct species. There are even images found in the Cave of Dogs, which is actually extremely rare in prehistoric cave art. Right now, it is debated whether it was Neanderthals that were responsible for this cave art, or if it was Homo sapiens after all, and to be honest, I mean, it could go either way. In our number 2 spot today we have the Fumain Cave. The cave art that exists here is an important source of art that was created during the Upper Paleolithic period, and this cave is home to some of the oldest stone art that can be found in Italy. Many of these paintings were created using red ochre, and it includes of course depictions of animals, but also of sort of half animal, half human hybrids, which may symbolize some sort of belief system or perhaps even mythology that existed at the time. It's hard for us to say for sure, but it certainly is a reflection of some sort of belief system that existed at the time. This is not only some of the oldest figurative cave art that can be found, but it also helped us to shed light on the contributions of both Neanderthals and modern man to Stone Age art during this time period. According to Alberto Broglio, professor of paleontology at the University of Ferrara, evidence obtained from this cave shows that there was a clean break between Neanderthal and modern humans, both in their culture and and their lifestyle. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Chevette Cave. This cave is located in southern France, and it contains some of the best and most well-preserved cave paintings that have been discovered to date, which truly is incredible. It isn't quite clear exactly when these paintings were made, and that's actually quite a source of debate among experts. It is known, however, that this cave definitely holds some of the oldest discovered cave paintings, some of which are thought to possibly be 30,000 years old. Most of these paintings consist of different animals, and there are actually no complete human figures seen here. There are a few panels of red ochre handprints and hand stencils, and a ton of abstract lines and dots that can be found throughout the cave. I could honestly talk about these specific cave paintings for an entire video, they're so interesting. One drawing seen here, which was later overlaid with a drawing of a deer, is sort of reminiscent of a volcano spewing lava, which was similar to the regional volcanoes that were active at the time, and if confirmed, this would represent the earliest known drawing of a volcanic eruption. Not only this, but those who created the art here used techniques that are very rarely seen in any other cave art. Like, they scraped the walls of debris before starting so as to give them a more blank canvas to work on. That's simply amazing. Our number 10 spot, we have war. Starting off this list today, we have a prediction that comes from the ancient prophet Nostradamus himself. In his book of quatrain poems, in which he predicted, sometimes correctly, the future, he wrote, quote, "Under the opposite Babylonian climate, great will be without the outpouring." If you gave me the book of all the Nostradamus predictions with no descriptions as to what I was reading, I wouldn't be able to tell you one thing about it. The guy basically spoke in code, so thank God for all those people out there much smarter than I who can tell us what these all mean. Basically, this little prediction is meant to say that Nostradamus seems to believe that 2022 is when we will see the first climate war. He believes that this war will involve neighboring countries and it will be a fight over dwindling resources. Unfortunately, this prediction isn't one that is too far off base from the way things really are. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Glacier. What would a list of predictions be without the wise words of Baba Vanga? The late clairvoyant and mystic had quite a few predictions for this year, so let's start off with just one. This prediction is in reference to a glacier which she says is going to melt this year, and let's be honest, that really is something that is extremely likely to happen. The thing though is that the darkness of this prediction lies in what is inside this glacier. She claims that once the glacier melts, it is going to release a new sort of virus onto the world, and it's one she says that humans will not be able to handle well. I know, I'm with ya. The literal last thing the world needs right now is some strange virus no one has ever seen before to suddenly be unleashed. I mean, here I am in 2022 still working from home, so no thanks, Baba Vanga. This prediction can stay far, far away from this world. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Big Three. Back with another Baba Vanga prediction. This one is a little less daunting than the last, but it's also a little more unclear as to what exactly she meant by it. Apparently, she said that this year we will see 3 giants unite, as well as a strong dragon that will seize humanity. Yeah, I have absolutely no idea, but there are some people out there who have a few ideas. People are speculating that this prediction is said to be about some large countries that hold a lot of world power all teaming up together. For what exactly? Who's to say for sure? This could potentially be a disastrous prediction if it were to come true, but there's also potential for it to be something spectacular and peaceful. I don't know. I'm not so sure about this one, but I am definitely hopeful. In our number 7 spot today, we have food pills. On this list today, we have a couple predictions that come from W.L. George. He was an English author who, in 1922, gave a bunch of predictions of what he thought the world would be like today. Some of them are shockingly accurate, which is very cool to read about, and some of them have yet to come true, but honestly aren't very far off. Starting with his today, we have a prediction that reads, quote, "It is conceivable, though not certain, that in 2022 a complete meal may be taken in the shape of 4 pills. This is not entirely visionary. I am convinced that corned beef hash and pumpkin pie will still exist." What in the Willy Wonka was going on in the minds of people in 1922? I guess in some ways this does already exist, but I don't think in the way he was meaning. We definitely have little pills, or more so candy, that tastes like a meal, and then we have pills that can give you the vitamins and minerals that would be comparable to eating a meal, but do we have anything that combines the two? I'm not sure if it's a great idea or not, but it just seems like something we probably have the technology for. Is there a market for this? WL has me left with a lot more questions that you think the last 100 years would have answered. Honestly, just give us the Spy Kids microwave and we'll be set. How's that for a prediction? In our number 6 spot today, we have hunger. Alright, another Nostradamus riddle for us here today. He wrote, quote, "Of blood and hunger greater calamity, 7 times oppressed to the marine beach, monarch of hunger, place taken, captivity." That was more confusing than the Baba Vanga one we just talked about, so let's try and decipher this one. Basically, people have explained that this one suggests that Nostradamus was predicting that this year we would see a rise in world hunger, which is a result of an increase in armed conflicts. This one is just bad all around. Firstly, that's a prediction that there's gonna be more bad, more war, more weapons. That's certainly never great on its own. These two things being smashed together certainly makes sense, but it doesn't mean it isn't grim. Let's just hope this is one of those far-off predictions that we never see come to fruition. In our number 5 spot today, we have A Bug's Life. Alright, this is one prediction that definitely came to fruition a couple years ago, so here I am asking, what's stopping 2022 from unfortunately holding the same kind of fate? Baba Vanga has predicted that 2022 will see a locust problem of biblical proportions. Okay, she didn't say that exactly. That was a bit of an exaggeration, but she did say that she thinks there will be a big old locust problem coming this year. This is something that was seen in India. While it sounds like it would only be a disgusting issue, this one is actually a very large issue for a multitude of reasons. Locusts can eat more than their own body weight each day, and they reproduce very quickly. This means that they can easily devour crops and can be a major problem for food supplies. Honestly, aside from all the important major issues, I just hate bugs so much, so this one sounds like an absolute nightmare. Like, absolutely no thank you. In our number 4 spot today, we have Paris. For one last Nostradamus prediction for this list today, we have a super worrisome one. He apparently wrote, quote, "All around the great city will be soldiers lodged by fields and cities." This is said to mean that for 2022, he is predicting that Paris will be under siege. For what reasons? Well, that remains unclear. There are other ways to interpret this prediction, like perhaps it's more so stating that the city will just be kind of closed off for a while, but truly who knows? I wish the people who made these predictions were just a little more direct with them, but hey, who am I to critique Nostradamus? At the end of the day, the good news is that this is just a prediction, and Nostradamus has been wrong before. But it just puts people a little bit on edge to hear these scary thoughts. In our number 3 spot today, we have energy. Another prediction that comes to us from W.L. George is this one that reads, quote, "Coal will not be exhausted, but our reserves will be seriously depleted, and so will those of oil. One of the world dangers a century hence will be a shortage of fuel, but it is likely by that time a great deal of power will be obtained from tides, from the sun, probably from radium and other forms of radial energy, while it may also be that atomic energy will be harnessed." This is one prediction that certainly already has, in some ways, come to fruition, but there is still more that is yet to be addressed in this one. Talking about the depletion of natural resources is not only a reality, but it was definitely quite forward-thinking for 1922. We can of course already harness the power of the sun through solar energy. Although it's not the most widespread thing, many people are rerouting to this more green form of energy. I think the most astonishing thing is the idea of atomic energy, which is also something that is becoming more and more widespread as the years roll on. In our number 2 spot today, we have disasters. This is one prediction that comes from Baba Vanga, and if I didn't know any better, it's one that makes me feel almost as if she had information as to what our world today would look like. She predicted that 2022 would be a year where we see a rise in the amount of natural disasters, more specifically earthquakes and tsunamis. This is made a little more eerie by the fact that she is very well known for having an accurate prediction of the 2004 tsunami, so let's hope that one was just an eerie fluke. She claims that several Asian countries, as well as Australia, will be the hardest hit by these disasters. Nostradamus also has a natural disaster prediction for 2022, and he says that Japan is going to have an earthquake that is going to strike in the middle of the day. It is tough to say how accurate or inaccurate these predictions are, and considering the implications of them, it's definitely nerve-wracking to hear. In our number 1 spot today, we have Work Week. Another W.L. George prediction for you today. This one reads, quote, "Americans will be less enterprising and much more pleasure-loving. They will have rebelled against long hours. The chances are that in 2022, few people will work more than 7 hours a day, if as much. The effect of this, which I am sure sounds regrettable to many of my readers, will, in my opinion, be good." This is actually a really interesting one. Not only is it very cool and fascinating to see someone having predicted this kind of thing all the way back in 1922, which is before the Second World War, but it's actually a huge topic of conversation right now. There are many places around the world that are cutting back their work weeks to lesser days or lesser hours, and it's a really controversial thing. Some people are really on board, and some are worried about the future of this. Let's have some civil discussions about this in the comments and weigh some pros and cons, especially if you've experienced both sides of the coin. Is one really better? Could working less in turn make some people more productive? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and feelings. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have battle. This is a prediction made by Nostradamus that is said to occur in the spring. Basically, Nostradamus wrote, quote, "Blue head shall white head harm in such degree, as France's good to both shall e'er amount." I have absolutely no idea what those words in that order mean, but thankfully there are people who think that they do. People believe that this prediction is meant to mean that war will be reaching Europe in the spring of this year. That's a grim start to this list. It's not exactly clear what this means. Is this where he's predicting the start of World War III will be? More on that later, by the way. Or is this a prediction of some entirely separate war? Maybe it's not war at all and potentially some other kind of battle. All I know is that a prediction that vague has got to leave us with at least a few questions. I guess by spring we'll have answers as to what he meant, or perhaps we'll realize it just wasn't destined to be true. In our number 9 spot today, we have the alien invasion. Okay, this is probably one of the least likely things on this list to occur, but that doesn't mean it won't. I mean, I'm certainly no seer or clairvoyant, so who am I to say for sure? Baba Vanga has predicted that sometime soon there will be some sort of alien contact, but it's not the kind that I'm hoping for. I truly believe that if aliens exist, they're probably peaceful. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, but I just think that that's true. This Baba Vanga prediction, however, completely suggests the opposite. She says that an asteroid will be sent by aliens to attack planet Earth. Okay, no thank you. That would be horrible. It would be so scary. They'd have technology we'd have never even seen before. My dreams of peaceful aliens would be crushed. We'd be at war with another planet. I just don't see any good in that. This is one prediction I am definitely hoping does not come true. In our number 8 spot today, we have inflation. This Nostradamus prediction is said to be about inflation. He wrote, quote, "No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in his despair." Well, that certainly doesn't sound good. We can all take our pick of reasons as to why this prediction is potentially likely to come true. It is really that ending line that has me a little unnerved though. Is Nostradamus telling us to eat the rich? Or is he just telling us how bad things just might become? Many believe that this prediction is his way of explaining that inflation and increase in starvation may just lead to some sort of a rebellion. I mean, that isn't the most far off prediction I've ever heard, and if things do unfortunately go that way, I could definitely see something similar coming true, but maybe I'm just easily persuaded. In our number 7 spot today, we have the dictator. This Nostradamus prediction is an interesting one for sure. According to those who interpret his prophecies, he is said to have predicted that in 2022, we will see the death of a dictator. Of course, he didn't predict exactly who this would be. If he did, that would be pretty insane. If he predicted who would be a dictator in 2022, I would be thoroughly impressed already. But since he didn't, of course, people want to speculate who this prediction could be about. I always find it so interesting to hear these kinds of predictions because I always wish I could know exactly what it is that leads them to it. This isn't like an outlandish prediction if it were to come true, but it would just be strange how they could accurately predict it so long ago. I don't know, I'm getting lost in the sauce here. Let's move on. In our number 6 spot today, we have World War III. This is a prediction that has been made many a time throughout the years, and it's one I think we can all agree on wishing it doesn't come true because the results would likely be catastrophic. It isn't quite clear what is said to cause the beginning or mark the beginning of World War III, but that is likely because, like I mentioned, it's been predicted tons and tons of times before. It is possible that maybe one of the predictions from part 1 could be the trigger, like the predicted climate war or perhaps the increase in world hunger we talked about. Either way, it's definitely a real possibility, although I'd like to call it unlikely. I think many people understand what exactly that would mean, and I don't think anyone is eager to jump into anything like that anytime soon, which I am very thankful for, that's for sure. In our number 5 spot today, we have immigration. in. This one kind of goes hand in hand with the last one, and it makes a lot of sense, especially if the prior prediction were to come true. Baba Vanga has predicted that because of an increase in war, especially a world war, that there will be more immigration as a result. It isn't quite clear exactly who is immigrating to where. The prediction is more so that just more of it is likely to go on. I wonder if this means that perhaps there will be an influx before the true beginning of the war, or if this is a more dire, scary sort of a situation. Either way, it's a scary thought. On the flip side of this prediction, there are people every year who have to leave their homes in search of a safer life somewhere else, and it's definitely a grim prediction to think about those numbers only getting higher. The good news though is that this is one prediction that is entirely dependent on other predictions coming true, and who do we know that has a 100% prediction rate, right? I'm no stats professor, but I just feel like the odds are good. In our number 4 spot today, we have asteroids. This is a prediction that came from trusty old Nostradamus, but if we're being honest, it's a prediction that pops up every year by someone, and it is the idea that this year is going to be the one where an asteroid impacts Earth. Nostradamus' words were, quote, "Fire do I see that from the sky shall fall." I'm not exactly sure if he means like a small meteor shower kind of thing, or if he's talking mass extinction, it's the apocalypse kind of thing, but either way, it's a little unnerving. Last year in 2021, we had a quote near miss with asteroid 2021 GW4, but it wasn't thought to be a huge deal either way because it is likely that it would have broken up in our atmosphere. Right now, it is said that the next near miss prediction is for around 2029, and that's from scientists. So at this point, I feel like we're probably safe, but who's to say for sure? Stranger things have happened, and space is a pretty terrifying place, so I wouldn't exactly be shocked. Maybe it's not an asteroid at all though. Maybe it's something to do with all the debris in our orbit. Or maybe it's all those satellites Elon Musk is putting into the sky. Or maybe it's nothing. Who knows? I guess only time will tell. In our number 3 spot today, we have the AI takeover. This is a prediction that comes from Nostradamus and is actually about our ever-increasing technological world. Technology in our world evolves rapidly, and it's tough to make predictions about what next year holds, but this prediction from Nostradamus reads, quote, "The moon in the full of night over the high mountain, the new sage with a lone brain sees it, by his disciples invited to be immortal, eyes to the south, hands in bosoms, bodies in the fire." Many people believe that this prediction made by Nostradamus is said to be about, quote, immortal disciples and the potentially negative consequences, which people are taking to mean artificial intelligence. AI is everywhere now, from smart speakers, text prediction, facial recognition, self-driving cars. It's not just that insanely human-looking robot with realistic facial expressions, although that does exist too. People for years have been predicting something negative coming in terms of all of this new AI technology, but perhaps the first to do it was Nostradamus himself. In our number 2 spot today, we have the explosion. This Nostradamus prediction is one that could certainly become a reality at any point, which is something that is pretty terrifying. In this day and age, the threat of nuclear attack, while not an imminent threat, is always kind of there, hanging out in the back of people's minds. It's not something most people think about every day, but it's just something that we know people possess the technology and the ability to do. You know, that's why this Nostradamus prediction is just a little eerie, as he claims a nuclear bomb will explode in 2022, and if this wasn't bad enough, it has some harsh implications. He is said to have predicted that this explosion will lead to changes in not only the climate, but also the Earth's position. I'm not exactly certain what he means by the Earth's position, but what I do know is that sounds terrible and terrifying. In our number 1 spot today, we have volcanoes. This is one prophecy that I think we already may be seeing come true. Baba Vanga predicted that this year we would see significant seismic and volcanic activity. Well, as of filming this video, the Tonga volcanic eruption just happened a few days ago, so it's looking like this prediction just might be an accurate one. Not only are the residents of Tonga working so hard to recover from the catastrophic effects the eruption had, but this eruption was the largest in the world in 3 decades. There was a giant shockwave that this eruption produced, but the tsunamis that followed were quite unusual. Not only were they detected in the Pacific, but they were also detected in the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Mediterranean, which is something that scientists will be studying for years to come. It is obvious that this isn't something that happens very often, so it's very interesting to see how the rest of the year will go and play out. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the orbit change. This is a Baba Vanga prediction that she originally had slated for next year in 2023, but who's to say that it couldn't be something that happened this year? She says that soon we will be seeing a little bit of a change in the orbit of the Earth. That prediction does seem kind of insane, but as it turns out, around every 100,000 years, this apparently happens naturally, so maybe this year or possibly the next is the time that this change is bound to occur. Apparently with these changes comes a shift in the Earth's climate. Usually the smaller the change in orbit, the bigger the change in climate, and vice versa, so with a prediction calling for a slight shift in the Earth's orbit, we can reasonably deduce that if this prediction were to come true, we would see a larger change in the climate as well. It isn't quite clear exactly how the change would affect temperatures and disasters and that sort of thing though. In our number 9 spot today we have doomsday. This prediction comes from a set of Latin phrases that have been attributed to Saint Malachi in the 12th century. These phrases claim that the end of the world will come with the election of Peter from Rome, the 112th Pope after Pope Celestine II, who was elected in 1143. The last Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, was the 111th Pope in that line apparently, which means that the current Pope, Pope Francis, is the 112th. The good news is that this prediction says it's going to be a Pope Peter's election that brings us into doomsday, so if there are any Peters who become the frontrunner for Pope anytime soon, that's when we can all start worrying a bit. But for now at least I think we're safe. I also wonder how people draw these conclusions. I want to know what led a saint in the 12th century to be like, yes, in hundreds and hundreds of years, Pope Peter will be the last. In our number 8 spot today we have energy. Baba Vanga has some thoughts and feelings when it comes to how we supply ourselves with energy, and she thinks in the near future we're going to see a change. She claims that we will soon find a new energy source, likely a controlled thermonuclear reaction. This is definitely an interesting prediction for a few reasons. Firstly, it was definitely before her time, and secondly, this is something that is entirely possible and we might be closer than we think. If we were able to find a way to get our energy from thermonuclear fusion, it would fix a lot of our energy problems. It is a huge if on whether or not we could actually get to a place where we could use it and have everything and everyone be safe, but if we did, it would really mean big things. In our number 7 spot today we have the argument. This is a prediction that isn't exactly ancient, as it comes from a science magazine from 1960. This prediction, or perhaps theory is a better way to put it, is based on the belief that only a finite number of humans will ever live and that we are getting close to that number. There are many researchers who have their own equations and formulas and ways of getting what they think the number will be, but there are a surprising amount of people who believe in this sort of, quote, doomsday argument. Maybe it's about the number of people the Earth can sustain, because of course that isn't an infinite amount, and a lot of things on this planet aren't renewable sources. I think that there are also people who aren't even thinking about that, and are just simply thinking about how far we can stretch humans and humankind, and at some point there's gotta be a dip. You can only keep growing for so long before something gives. Either way, whatever the reasoning behind it, people are thinking that our ever-growing population might be the cause for our imminent decline. In our number 6 spot today we have World Hunger Part 3. This is a prediction that actually sits in a direct contrast with one of the predictions that was made on Part 1, which is a great reminder of how these are just predictions that have just as much, if not more of a chance of not coming true than they do of being super accurate. Also, many of these predictions from long ago are kind of up to interpretation, choose your own adventure types. Although this prediction contradicts one from the first list, I wanted to include it because I hope it comes true. The prediction states that world hunger is gradually being overcome. World hunger is something that we have struggled with for many years, and while we technically have the resources available to end it, we simply just don't. So that really would be a Baba Vanga prediction that would be nice to see come true. In our number 5 spot today we have solar storms. We apparently might see some pretty intense and devastating solar storms this year. These storms were predicted by Nostradamus, but also have been in the news recently as the sun has been showing more and more activity. These solar storms could have a terrible effect on our Earth and mess with available resources, and could potentially even render some areas unlivable. Nostradamus said we will see rising water and the Earth falling under it. If this were to happen, we could potentially see mass migration and fighting over resources, which really makes sense when we look at some of his other predictions that were on part 1 and 2 of this series. Hopefully the sun just feels like acting calm, cool, and collected. In our number 4 spot today we have Venus. This Baba Vanga prediction is in terms of what she thinks will soon come true in the world of space travel and exploration. She believes that soon we will be launching a manned spacecraft to Venus. While there currently aren't any planned manned space missions to Venus because of the extreme atmosphere that exists on the planet, there are currently 2 missions that NASA announced earlier that are planned to head to Venus sometime in the next decade. Both the Da Vinci Plus mission and the Veritas mission will explore Venus and the atmosphere, as well as the geological history, in an attempt to learn how it formed, why it evolved so differently than Earth, and to see if the planet ever had an ocean. In our number 3 spot today, we have the economy. This is a prediction that was made for the near future, but who's to say it couldn't be something we see this year? I mean, a little good news on the horizon wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Basically, this prediction may possibly go hand in hand with the world hunger one, because it is the idea that soon we will see an economic boom and be living in the midst of a thriving economy. Wouldn't that just be nice? Economies around the world have certainly taken a hit in the last few years, but that doesn't mean a bounce back isn't possible. Maybe something is gonna happen that's gonna change the infrastructure. Maybe it already has and we're in the midst of it and we just don't know. Either way, I don't know enough about the economy to accurately say how this could come to fruition, but what I do know is that I'm hoping this one comes true. And sooner rather than later. In our number 2 spot today, we have the zombie apocalypse. This one comes from the list of Nostradamus predictions that he had, and it predicts a pretty grim situation. Apparently he wrote, quote, "few young people half dead to give a start," and people have taken this to mean that it's the beginning of the end. It's a zombie apocalypse. He wrote that it would start off with a Russian scientist and lead to total extinction. While I'm a huge Last of Us fan, I would prefer if we kept the zombies in the game instead of in real life. Maybe all the doomsday preppers are right, but maybe this is just one prophecy that isn't meant to come true. At this point, only time will tell. In our number 1 spot today, we have cloning. Baba Vanga made quite an interesting scientific prediction, and it's one that at first wasn't quite clear, as she predicted that soon we will find that any bodies could be manufactured. People believe that this is her predicting that soon we might see cloning become something that is more widespread and accepted. This is one that makes sense because we already have the science to clone living beings. It's just still something that freaks a lot of people out. So maybe if this prediction were to come true, we would see a lot more cloning happening, and I'm sure for unnecessary reasons, but the prediction also might possibly suggest that we were able to clone organs, which may be a really useful scientific advancement. This could potentially help many people who need different organ transplants and could potentially eliminate the need for someone to pass in order for someone else to receive their organs. Or maybe this prediction isn't about cloning at all and it's more about our ability to recreate human parts and organs. That also wouldn't be so bad.
And the number 10 spot is an alien invasion. So, starting us off about as far into conspiracy land as I possibly can, because why not? According to the famous blind seer Baba Vanga, it's not just typical human wars that we should be worried about this year, but the invasion of an evil alien species as well. Now, there are many different conspiracy theories surrounding the existence of aliens to begin with. Among believers, some think they are harmless while others think they are dangerous, and there's even a third sort of faction that suggests there is obviously more than one race of aliens, so both dangerous and peaceful could exist in our universe. Now, putting aside the theories surrounding if aliens are dangerous or not, according to Baba Vanga, this year we will be invaded by a race of bloodthirsty monsters that will tragically result in the end of all humankind. If that's all true, it would mean that 2023 would be the last year we all have, as again, she predicts aliens will wipe out the human race and take over the planet Earth. I mean, there is very little we can use to verify the validity of this statement, but you can sure hope I am praying it is not true, because, well, I just don't want to die. Now, all that being said, Baba Vanga did also predict that the world won't end until like 5079, so there might be a bit of breathing room on this one. However, if this does all end up to be true, would the government know about their impending arrival and be preparing for such a disaster? I mean, I just have so many questions. Let's just hope this one misses the mark and does not come true. Next up at number 9, a star explosion. Although the exact date is not specified, according to the optimistic Vanga, one unsuspecting day in 2023, people will be going about their usual daily business when all of a sudden, without any warning, the sky will become frighteningly illuminated by a blinding flash of light. But it won't be lightning or some power outage. Instead, she predicts that a massive star will explode, sending down a terrifying shower of sparks and debris across the globe. To make it even worse, Baba Vanga foresees that the explosion will be so bright that it will be seen from every corner of the globe, lighting up the night sky for an insane 5 years. But apparently the phenomenon is going to be so alarming that astronomers and scientists will rush to study it, only to find that it is unlike any other solar explosion to date. And the star's blast will be so powerful that it will cause the very fabric of time and space to ripple and bend. So if Baba Vanga is correct, then the entire concept of time and space could cease to exist as we know it from now until 2028. I sure as hell hope not. Coming in at number 8. No more money. Sometimes when I read these predictions, I wonder just how many bad things could possibly have been foreseen to exist in one calendar year. And apparently on top of an alien invasion and the end of time and space as we know it, Vanga also predicts that in 2023 the concept of money as we now use and understand it will come to a complete and utter halt. Now I know it's hard to imagine how our world would function without currency, as literally everything revolves around it. But if you think about it a little less literally, we are already seeing the beginnings of this. Cash is virtually on its way out, and everyone pays for everything with their cards, their phone, or even their watch. Plus, with the addition of cryptocurrencies, who knows how long the idea of currency as we currently understand and use it will remain. However, just like most things, this could go in two vastly separate directions. On one hand, she could mean something along the lines of what I just said earlier, and no more money means a shift in how we use currency. But it could also mean that there's some kind of economical collapse, and so the concept of currency at all becomes obsolete, and that would be insane. Coming in at number 7, a bird epidemic. Among the other catastrophic predictions Vanga believes will come true between now and the end of the year is a deadly bird virus that could potentially be so widespread that nearly all species will be at risk of extinction. The virus, transmitted through the air and contaminated water sources, will strike quickly and with devastating effects. Within weeks, entire flocks will be wiped out, and the once common sight of birds soaring through the sky will become so rare that they will almost feel like an urban legend. As the virus spreads, scientists will scramble to find a cure, but despite their efforts, the virus will prove to be unstoppable, and the birds as we know them will cease to exist. Now, this would be devastating for many reasons because, well, our planet needs all the species it has to work properly, and the loss of every single bird on the planet all at once would cause major issues for not only the population of creatures the bird eats, but it would likely also cause an overnight collapse of the farming industry. I mean, just think how much money people make off of chickens and turkeys alone. So for obvious reasons, let's hope this one missed the mark. Next up at number 6, bioweapons. Now, if this list of hypothetical catastrophic 2023 events hasn't scared you much just yet, then this one just might. According to Vanga, in 2023, there will be a big country that will carry out bioweapon studies on humans, which would have horrifying consequences. For those who don't know, bioweapons are essentially bacteria or diseases that are used in an effort to harm and kill people in an act of war. Now, the good news is that many large countries like Canada, US, and the UK have a complete ban on these type of experiments, but there are other countries around the world that could still be the culprit. But who knows, if other 2023 predictions are true, countries could pull out of the treaty and begin conducting experiments to try and make it out alive. The consequences of the release of bioweapons could be detrimental and has the potential to wipe out the whole planet if we aren't careful. Coming in at number 5, a nuclear explosion. Among her many other foresights for 2023, Vanga also warned that sometime this year a nuclear power plant will explode, causing irreparable damage. Now, to be fair, this has happened before, and so the idea of it happening again, while incredibly frightening, doesn't seem like her most outlandish prediction. Plus, there are are certain countries who are at war with others that possess the power to cause such a disaster. Now, what's especially spooky about Vanga is that she has a wild success rate, 85% in fact, according to scientists that have studied her predictions. So it has many wondering if this prediction will fall into that 85% success rate along with Chernobyl and her own death date, or if it will be among the 15% that she has missed. For the sake of our planet, I'm crossing my fingers that this is not something we will be faced with for the last half of this year. Coming in at number 4, a solar tsunami. As if the predictions for 2023 haven't been through enough already, there is a dark end of world prediction that there will be a solar storm on a scale never seen before. Now, solar storms happen when a burst of energy is released from the sun, and this sends electrical charges and radiation hurling towards the Earth. While that does sound a bit freaky, it actually happens all the time, like the Northern Lights for example. But what Vanga was predicting is more along the lines of complete and utter worldwide blackout followed by technological failures and overall global panic. Quite literally, she is describing a dark age. If her prediction is true, it would essentially cause complete societal collapse, and truthfully, who knows what happens from there. Coming in at number 3. A change in orbit. Next up on the dark predictions Baba Vanga has in store for the year of 2023 is that apparently our Earth will change its orbit. Now, the details of how this would even happen were not given, but if it turns out to be true, we are in for some serious issues. For starters, any shift in the Earth's orbit could bring devastating damages to sea level and our climate, both of which aren't particularly thriving to begin with at the moment, and even worse, if the Earth moved any closer to the sun, the increased radiation and temperatures would cause a complete breakdown. Essentially, any changes to the Earth's orbit would send us into complete and full mayhem and would very much be the end of the world, which, you know, is frankly not how I would like to spend the rest of my year. Coming in at number 2. Cyborgs. Along with the death of all birds, a nuclear explosion, a solar tsunami, and even an alien invasion, this year we will also see a revolutionary new technology being developed that will promise to change how humans live forever. Baba Vanga says this cyborg system, if you will, is going to be a groundbreaking development that allows people to replace their natural bodies and organs with artificial ones, making them part human and part machine. Now, not all of this is incredibly far off to believe. I mean, we already make prosthetic limbs for people and so on, but I think it depends on what things we start replacing and how much of the body becomes a robot that determines the sort of post-apocalyptic feel of it. So, like with many things, in the right hands, this could be a good advancement to medicine, but in the wrong hands, it could very much look like a dystopian wasteland ruled by robot overlords. And last up in our number 1 spot today is lab births. Almost like some weird cousin to The Handmaid's Tale, Vanga's most terrifying prediction for 2023 is a dystopian world where we will see the end of natural human births. Specifically, that birth, the way we have been doing it since the beginning of time, will be banned. She claims to foresee that the government will make it the law that all life must be created in a lab, and that medical experts would essentially decide how many people are born a year, and that parents would be able to customize their traits and appearances even. Now, this prediction doesn't come totally out of left field, as we do have the capabilities to involve science in the process to a much higher degree than ever before. A while back, an article was circulating about a real-life human boy named Adam, who was created in a lab from stem cells and grown in an artificial gestational sac for 36 weeks, and it caused quite the uproar. Now, this article was proved to be totally fake, but the entire idea of it was believable at the time and certainly made many people very uncomfortable. Could it be something that comes true in the future? I mean, maybe? I just hope if medicine does advance in that way, it does not also outlaw non-lab created humans.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the big one. It has been predicted for many years, and many people believe that at some point there's going to be a pretty devastating earthquake in California, but it could be coming up quicker than we anticipated. Nostradamus has predicted that a huge earthquake will hit the New World, or the Western lands, and California is truly the most likely place in the West for this to happen. With this prediction, he also also gave some astrological indications of when he believes this will happen. He said that it would happen when Mercury is in Sagittarius and when Saturn is fading. It is said that the next time Mercury will make its transit into Sagittarius is closer to the end of the year in December, so it looks like we have quite a bit of time to wait out to see if this one comes true or not. In our number 9 spot today we have solar storms. We apparently might see some pretty intense and devastating solar storms this year. These storms were predicted by Nostradamus but also have been in the news recently as the sun has been showing more and more activity. These solar storms could have a terrible effect on our Earth and mess with available resources and could potentially even render some areas unlivable. Not to mention how these solar storms can affect satellites that are in our orbit, which would cause a tremendous amount of trouble for our technological world. Nostradamus said that these storms could cause the water levels on Earth to rise, which would of course begin to submerge more land. If this were to happen, we could potentially see mass migration and fighting over resources. Hopefully the sun just feels like acting calm, cool, and collected, because if it doesn't, there really isn't much we can do about it. In our number 8 spot today we have the earthquake. This prediction Nostradamus had is in reference to a natural disaster that it is said he predicts will happen this year in Japan. Nostradamus has said that he believes an earthquake will strike the country sometime this year, but he says that he believes it will hit in the middle of the day. I am absolutely hoping this prediction does not come true, but it is said that if it were to, the timing of it would be the best possible in order to avoid as many casualties as possible. He does, however, make it very clear that he believed that the material loss as a result of this catastrophe will be great. Unfortunately, there isn't a very precise way to measure how accurate or inaccurate these kinds of scary predictions are, and we simply just have to hope for the best and wait and see. In our number 7 spot today we have the new position. It is believed that in one of his predictions, Nostradamus alluded to a new pope coming into the position soon. It is believed that Nostradamus referred to the pope in a few of his quatrains, but he has also explained that his successor will be a young man. People who have gone on to interpret his prophetic quatrains have some grim news about this new pope, however. It is said that the new guy is going to create a scandal that will last for years to come in the Catholic Church. It is unclear exactly what will happen after this, what this scandal will be, but many people don't have very high expectations and think that this might be a true turning point for the papacy. In our number 6 spot today we have the golden period. This is an interesting prediction, most especially because Nostradamus isn't the only prophet who is said to have made it. This one doesn't pertain to just 2022, but involves a time starting a couple years ago and leading up to 2025. Basically, this prediction is that right now we're in the midst of a period of change, and in 2025 we will be introduced into a completely new world order. It is said that this change will then lead us into a golden period of about 1,000 years where things are just good for humanity. It is said that the period of 2019 to 2025 is one where evil is ruling the world, but 2025 is where things are set to get better. I don't know how I feel about this one, but it certainly is compelling. It is said that other prophets have also said similar things about this time period, and that this has even been mentioned in ancient scriptures in different cultures as well. In our number 5 spot today we have currency. This Nostradamus prediction reads, quote, "The copies of gold and silver inflated, which after the theft were thrown into the lake. At the discovery that all is exhausted and dissipated by the debt, all scrips and bonds will be wiped out." In this day and age, I guess people have deciphered this to be a nod to cryptocurrency. I was hoping that they were going to take away my student loans, but I guess not. The bots in the comments are going to love this one though. Apparently he is describing the decline of good old-fashioned forms of currency and the rise of this new kind of currency. I'm not so sure how, if this really is what he was saying, he was able to make this kind of prediction hundreds of years ago, but hey, I could say that about some of the ones that have already come true, I guess. In our number 4 spot today we have flooding. There are all kinds of natural disaster predictions for this year, but this is one that has already come true. Nostradamus predicted that this year Australia would see an increase in flooding. He predicted that there would be some very serious and severe bouts for the country, and just 2 weeks ago this really did come to fruition. Over 100 millimeters of rainfall hit southeast Queensland over the weekend just a few weeks ago. This left thousands of people without power, homes and businesses underwater, and people lost their lives. This flooding was the worst that was seen in the area since 2011, and at the time that flooding was called a once-in-a-century event, so you can imagine the residents' surprise when just a decade later they were once again facing this very serious and frightening issue. So I guess on this list of things that might come true, this one already has. In our number 3 spot today we have depopulation. In part 1 of this video we talked talked about nuclear warfare and the predictions related to that, and today we are talking about a prediction Nostradamus had in relation to a possible nuclear incident. It is said that he predicted that some countries will have to deal with depopulation soon as a result of chemical weapons and nuclear fallout. He wrote, quote, "Within the isles a very horrible uproar. One will hear only a party of war, so great will be the insult of the plunderers that they will come to be joined in the Great League." This prediction is a terrifying one because if this is the result, it makes us wonder what the catastrophic event is going to be that causes this. Right now it is clear that every country is doing their absolute best to avoid any kind of scenario where these types of things would be used, so let's just hope that this continues to work out and this prophecy is one that never comes true. In our number 2 spot today we have drought. Like I mentioned before, there are many natural disaster predictions for this year and one of them has to do with drought. We are talking about unprecedented levels of drought globally, and it is said that at the moment every continent except Antarctica is experiencing it at some level. Droughts aren't exactly a new thing, but with the rise in temperatures and the change in weather patterns and precipitation frequency, it is something that is getting a little more frequent than it might have been previously. He doesn't elaborate on how long this will last or what the lasting damage of this will be, so I guess only time will tell. In our number 1 spot today we have the fall. This is quite a grim prediction, but it is also a very large one. Nostradamus is said to have predicted that soon we will see the fall of a large empire. That would be quite a thing to see come to fruition, as it's been hundreds of years since the last time we saw an empire collapse, and before that it was even longer. It isn't quite clear exactly how this is said to come to fruition or what consequences of fallout would be after, but it would be absolutely shocking. There is the possibility of this happening after some sort of war or conflict, but it isn't exactly clear where this will occur or what will end up replacing the empire after its fall. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the Martian meltdown. For this one we are taking a trip off planet because finally someone is predicting that something bad is going to happen somewhere else, not right here on Earth for us all to suffer. The prophet apparently has a grim prediction for Mars for this 2023, saying that, quote, "The light of Mars will go out." Of course this is a bit different of a meaning in this day and age, so people are speculating what this could mean. While this could be a prediction that something bad might happen to the planet by fate of the cosmos, others think this could be a prediction that relates to our exploration of Mars and more specifically any upcoming manned missions. Perhaps something with a company like SpaceX with future plans to send people to Mars might happen, or perhaps we'll find evidence that a trip to Mars just isn't feasible for humans. Of course though, like with anything on this list, only time will tell. In our number 9 spot today we have the Palace Peril. One of the predictions made by Nostradamus suggested that this year there would be a, quote, "celestial fire on the royal edifice." People of course have been scrambling to figure out what exactly this could mean, and so far people believe this is predicting a grim fate for Buckingham Palace. The prediction of course was made before Buckingham Palace was even built, but that doesn't mean it couldn't come to fruition. Perhaps this could be in reference to the Harry and Meghan Netflix debacle we saw last month. Some people however think that based on the words celestial fire, that perhaps the palace might be set on fire by an asteroid. I definitely am leaning towards a less literal approach, but hey, I am not the seer or the prophet here. I'm just here to tell you what he said. In our number 8 spot today we have the end. This one comes from the list of Nostradamus predictions that he had, and it predicts a pretty grim situation. Apparently he wrote, quote, "Few young people half dead to give start." Well, a vivid imagination might be able to come up with a few ideas of what this might be predicting. Apparently people have said that this prediction is intended to be about the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. It's both good and terrifying to note that people have been thinking of the zombie apocalypse for centuries. It's not just part of our modern world. Apparently Nostradamus wrote that the apocalypse would start off with a Russian scientist and lead to total extinction. Okay, well, that's something nice to look forward to for this year. I started off glass half full and I'm trying to keep it that way, but at this point it's getting hard. Maybe all of the doomsday preppers are right. At this point only time will tell. In our number 7 spot today we have the riot. In his book of quatrains and prophecies, Nostradamus wrote, quote, "Sooner or later you will see great changes made, horrors and terrible revenges." Definitely doesn't sound great, but what people are speculating this to mean is that there will be upheavals and civil rebellion seen in the new year. The prediction continues on with, quote, trumpets are shaking in great controversy and, quote, an agreement that has been broken. This is all leading people to believe that this could be the setup for some sort of revolution, although it's not quite clear where in the world this is speaking about or what issue it covers. All over the world there are people speaking up and out about the issues that they are facing, so it's tough to pinpoint one area it could be, although many people believe it could be about the uprising and protests seen in Iran, which many believe will only continue on and escalate. In our number 6 spot today, we have the warm waters. For this one, we have this fun little message that delivers a terrifying prediction for the future of our oceans. Nostradamus wrote, quote, like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea, the black sea's living fish shall all but boil. Okay, yeah, definitely not a good look so far. It seems as though the seer is predicting that the fish in the sea are basically going to be heated to death, and recent studies might be suggesting the same thing. Some more recent research is starting to suggest that some of the most commonly consumed fish could face extinction due to climate change and the warming of our oceans. Of course, this is concerning considering the fact that this is one of humanity's major food sources, but if there was a major die-off of species, who knows what would happen to the species that could survive the warmer waters? I mean, a drastic change like that could completely destroy an ecosystem. It's definitely a terrifying prediction, and if research continues to back it up, things are starting to look a lot more grim. Coming in at our halfway mark in our number 5 spot, we have gone nuclear. This Nostradamus prediction is one that could certainly become a reality at any point, which is something that is pretty terrifying. In this day and age, the threat of a nuclear attack, while not an imminent threat, is always kinda there, hanging out in the back of people's minds. Like, it's not something most people think about every day, but it's just something that we know people possess the technology and the ability to do, you know? And like I've mentioned a bunch of times today, with the things that are currently going on, it seems as though it's more than just hanging out in the back of our minds. It's a scary reality, and that's why this Nostradamus prediction is just a little eerie, as he claims a nuclear bomb will explode in 2023, and if this wasn't bad enough, it has some harsh implications. He is said to have predicted that this explosion will lead to changes in not only the climate, but also the Earth's position. Not exactly certain what he means by the Earth's position, but what I do know is that that sounds terrible and terrifying. Like, the position of the Earth in the solar system, just in general, like, I've got so many questions. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Antichrist. Some people believe that Nostradamus predicted that in 2023, we will see the rise of the Antichrist, who will swiftly wage a war against those who don't believe in him. According to the New York Post, Nostradamus wrote, quote, the Antichrist very soon annihilates the three. 27 years his war will last. The unbelievers are dead, captive, exiled, with blood, human bodies, water, and red hail covering the earth. Okay? Definitely not the 2023 I had in mind. At this point, it isn't clear who this could refer to, but of course, with any of these predictions, people will find a way to fit it to match any real world event currently ongoing. But the thing is, only time will truly tell. Some think that perhaps it could relate to a sort of politician or political situation, but others believe that this isn't referring to just one person, and instead is referring to many people that are already on the move. In our number 3 spot today, we have famine. Food instability isn't a new thing, and for those of us fortunate enough to have constant access to food, we have noticed the prices of food going up. And according to some experts, this might relate back to a prediction Nostradamus made for us. He wrote, quote, no abbots, monks, no novices to learn, honey shall cost far more than candle wax, so high the price of wheat that man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in his despair. Basically, in this prediction, he's saying that the cost of food is going to rise so high that it's going to lead people to eat other people. Definitely the most extreme of situations and a terrifying thought, but the prediction doesn't have to be taken so literally either. While maybe what he said is exactly what he means, this also could just be a prediction that people won't be as kind or giving as they normally are. People might turn their backs on those in need more in order to have more for themselves. You know, more of a dog-eat-dog world sort of a situation. I truly hope that this is not the case, so Fingers crossed for 2023, I guess. In our number 2 spot today we have asteroids. This is one of those predictions that seemingly pops up every year and doesn't just come from long ago. It's basically the idea that an asteroid is going to impact Earth. It's a prediction that no one wants to come true, but for some reason we also always guess that it might. It's really weird. Humans are very strange. Nostradamus' words were, quote, "Fire do I see that from the sky shall fall." I'm not exactly sure if he means like a small meteor shower kind of thing or if he's talking mass extinction, it's the apocalypse kind of thing, but either way, it's a little unnerving. In 2021, we had a near miss with asteroid 2021 GW4, but it wasn't thought to be a huge deal either way because it likely would have broken up in our atmosphere. Right now, it is said that the next near miss prediction is for around 2029, and that's from scientists. So at this point, I feel like we're probably safe, but who's to say for sure? People have also suggested that perhaps instead of asteroids, this prediction might be about missiles falling from the sky, which is honestly just as terrifying at this point. In our number 1 spot today we have the climate disaster. According to Nostradamus, it is increasingly possible that the Earth might need to brace itself and get ready to go through another climate disaster in 2023. I know, not what any of us would like to hear. Mother Nature is terrifying, she is powerful, and we really are just sort of at the mercy of the weather and climate. According to experts, Nostradamus wrote, quote, "The dry land will dry up even more, and there will be great floods when you see the rainbow." It seems like perhaps we might be in for some periods of drought before the flood comes. Throughout the years, we've definitely seen some worsening weather in a multitude of ways. The Earth ebbs and flows and goes through changes, and we really are just along for the ride. All I know is that through this list, it's become quite clear that 2023 might be one wild ride. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have ruin. Of course, in recent years, the royal family has seen a change that really many didn't expect. When Harry and Meghan chose to renounce their royalty status, speculation began that this could be the beginning of the end for the monarchy. People only fueled their fire with this quatrain from Nostradamus, which reads, "At the end of the war, the great powers change. Near the coast are born 3 beautiful children. They will ruin the town when they come of age. They will change the kingdom, and they will not see it grow anymore." Now, Harry is only one of 2 children, so I'm not sure if the quatrain was talking about him and his sibling, or if it has more to do with some other royal family members, but either way, there are some people who take Nostradamus' words very seriously, so maybe there really is something there. In our number 9 spot today, we have revolution. So this is a quatrain that is said to have predicted basically the French Revolution. The phrase reads, "From the enslaved populace, songs, chants, and demands. While princes and lords are held captive in prisons, these will in the future by headless idiots be received as divine prayers." Apparently, starting with the storming of Bastille in 1789, this quatrain predicted the overthrowing of the monarchy and the establishment of a new republic. The Third Estate took control of Paris and had their demands heard, but of course, especially in those times, things turned bloody. Both nobles and common people were being called traitors to the revolution, and they met their fate at the guillotine. Remember that whole headless part in the quatrain? In our number 8 spot today we have King Henry II. This is one quatrain that people believe was Nostradamus predicting the death of King Henry II, who was actually a personal acquaintance of the prophet himself. While at one point Nostradamus was seen addressing King Henry II as the most invincible Henry, King of France, unfortunately Henry proved to be quite vincible when he met his gruesome death at age 40. In the summer of 1559, a terrible jousting accident gone wrong left the king passing away shortly after from sepsis. This is a terrible story, but I told it because many think that Nostradamus actually predicted it. The jousting accident saw the king having splinters driven into his eye and skull by one of his young soldiers, and the Nostradamus quatrain reads, "The young lion will overcome the older one. It says that he will pierce his eyes through a golden cage, and that 2 wounds will ensure a cruel death." So, I'm not saying he did, I'm just saying it's a little unbelievable. In our number 7 spot today we have the Great Fire. So for this Nostradamus prophecy, let's start out with the quatrain in question. It reads, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London, burnt through lightning of 23's the 6. The ancient lady will fall from her high place, several of the same sect will be killed." There are many people who believe that this quatrain was actually one that predicted the Great Fire of London that occurred in 1666. So basically people think this so much in part because of the fact that if you take the line 23's the 6 and times 20 by 3 and then add 6, you get 66. It obviously mentions London, and this fire was absolutely disastrous. I know this isn't necessarily a direct reference to the royal family, but this fire really did affect them. Also, it is said by many that the reference to the lady in this quatrain, as well as other quatrains, the lady is actually a term for the kingdom. This means that Nostradamus was predicting that the kingdom was going to fall as a result of the Great Fire. In our number 6 spot today we have Charles I. It is said that Nostradamus was able to predict the death of Charles I, and he did this through a quatrain with very specific circumstances. It reads, "Gainst Antwerp, Gant shall Brussels bring with it, the London Senate put to death their king, the salt and wine shall then against him be, for them to have the realm in Eerily." So the death of Charles is said to be the first time there was a death of a king in England that was because of a ruling from the Court of Justice and from Parliament. This is also after a time where there was a civil war in the Netherlands, which ended in a peace treaty, but that's what people are saying that the beginning is a reference to. It is also said that the salt and wine in the latter half is a reference to France. In our number 5 spot today we have a bad leader. This is a quatrain that I'm not entirely sure who it's referencing, or perhaps it is more of a comment on a style of ruling in general rather than one particular ruler, but either way it is a less than ideal prediction for the monarchy. It reads, "In England king shall under butcher truckle, a mean man force the realm to him to buckle. Faithless and lawless he shall bleed the land, I sigh to think his time's so near at hand." It appears as though Nostradamus is predicting that soon after the death of a king, there will be someone taking over who is less than ideal. Whoever this ruler is, they are said to be overbearing and totalitarian-like. They don't care about the earth or the land, and they go against the rules that were already set out, and not even Nostradamus wants to deal with this guy. At the end, it seems like he's almost begrudgingly passing along this news. In our number 4 spot today we have the plague. One of the things Nostradamus was known for was treating people who were sick with the plague. Because of the times and the lack of medical knowledge, he actually had some tricks that were quite smart and that would provide some relief to a sick person even now. Of course, not to the level that modern medicine can, but we are talking about some really solid home remedies. This is all to say it's no surprise that the plague made it into some of his predictions. He wrote, "The city port's great plague shall not be ended until the death of just blood be avenged, gateless condemned for gain upon pretense to the great lady he had done violence." People have taken this quatrain to mean that Nostradamus is predicting that the plague will continue to be around until the great lady, meaning the kingdom, is avenged. In our number 3 spot today we have King James' downfall. This is said to be a quatrain that predicted the downfall and exile and succession of King James. The quatrain reads, "30 of London's gainst their king devise, on him about the bridge of enterprise. His guards for his death do with displeasure mourn, elected king a Dutchman fair-haired born." So basically, King James was removed from the throne because at the time people were upset at him, which is what the beginning refers to. The bridge mentioned in the quatrain is said to be a reference to him being exiled and sent away, but of course he would later come back to try and regain the throne. In the end, however, his successor would go on to be William III, who had a co-monarchy with Mary II. This is said to be mentioned in the last line. Although William was not fair-haired, he was Dutch-born. In our number 2 spot today we have Mary II. This is a quatrain that definitely ties into the last, and it is said to show the prediction that Mary II would come into power with her husband. The quatrain reads, "The eldest sister of the British throne, 15 years older than her mother's son, on promised terms fully unto agreed, unto the balanced kingdom shall succeed." Mary was the eldest daughter of England. It is said that she was born 15 years before a brother, but at the end of the day all of her mother's children other than Mary and her sister passed away, so that is a little difficult to confirm. She succeeded as a sovereign queen. I mean, it really all does make sense that this quatrain would be referencing this co-monarchy. In our number 1 spot today we have the end. To tie this whole thing together, we have a grim prediction that is said to come from Nostradamus in relation to the queen. It is said that Nostradamus said that the queen would be overwhelmed with old family problems. And it is also said that Nostradamus predicted that the monarchy will end with her. This could potentially be true, based on recent events, like I mentioned previously with Harry and Meghan renouncing their royalty, and when we look at who's next in the succession line, it doesn't exactly give us all high hopes for the future of the monarchy that we would like to see. Perhaps if Prince William were to take over, England may move to a republic for the second time in its history, but that truly didn't work out so well for everyone involved. At this point, I am not the seer that Nostradamus was, and he is long gone, so it's looking like only time will tell what's up next.
Starting off this countdown, we have the intergalactic war. As I mentioned in part 1 of this video, there are a number of people on TikTok who claim to be time travelers from the future, and they are using TikTok to warn people what's to come. And according to TikToker Aesthetic Time Warper, on August 11th of this year, aliens will come down in their crafts and land on Earth. He continued on saying that eventually an intergalactic war will take place. Ain't that great? I hope the military starts working on space weapons because I feel like aliens would easily win this battle. Who knows what weapons of mass destruction they have. Moving on to number 9, we have the Civil War. One of the most famous time travelers out there would have to be John Titor. For those of you who don't know, John Titor is a supposed time traveler from the year 2036, and he's on a military mission. He first made his appearance on the internet in the 2000s on online forums. He would post about predictions or share stories from the future. But in 2001, Titor disappeared from online and was never heard from again. Now, one of the reasons John went back in time was to warn the world of impending doom. He said that in 2004, the US would face civil unrest surrounding the presidential election. He said that every month this conflict would get worse and worse, and then there would be a full-blown civil war by 2008. He predicted that as a result of the war, the US would split into 5 regions. Each region would have their own military objective, hence why they decided to split. According to him, the war would end in 2015 and would be followed by World War III. Now obviously this didn't happen, thankfully, but Titor argued that not only was he warning us about the upcoming wars, but he was trying to prevent it from happening. So maybe he did. In our 8th spot, we have the hurricane. According to another TikTok time traveler, on June 28th of 2022, a very disastrous and dangerous hurricane will hit between Georgia and South Carolina. He said that this one will be one of the 5 most deadliest hurricanes we have faced yet. Now, one of the worst hurricanes in the world would be the 1900 Galveston hurricane, also known as the Great Galveston Hurricane or the Great Storm of 1900. This was the deadliest natural disaster in United States history, and around 8,000 people died as a result. So let's hope that this does not happen. I did not have hurricanes on my summer 2022 bucket list. In our 7th spot today, we have the earthquake. Honestly, all of these predictions seem to be geared towards the US, and I'm in Canada, so I'm out here chilling. But all of my American fans maybe consider moving. So about a month after the massive hurricane will hit, a strong earthquake will strike. How fun! This time traveler claims that on July 23rd of 2022, the strongest earthquake in history will hit LA and will create a giant wave. Again, let's hope that this does not come true, but I'm happy I'm living in Canada. Moving on to number 6, we have 4 Vesta. 4 Vesta is the name of a meteor said to be headed straight to Earth. This anonymous time traveler has come to this year to warn people what is going to happen this year. And they claim that in September, a meteor called 4 Vesta will pass by Earth and almost hit the coast of China. Now, good news. He said almost, meaning we'll be safe. But a number of other time travelers say that 2022 will be filled with close calls and near misses. Hopefully, we never have to worry about one actually crashing down. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the superhumans. That one time traveler, that's literally his name, on TikTok went viral after having a strange prediction for December of 2021. First off, he claims to be a time traveler from the year 2485. According to him, he said that on December 20th of 2021, 8 humans will receive superpowers from energy waves of the sun. But then, by Christmas Day, something big will happen that will shock the world and change the way humans live forever. Now, those dates have come and gone, and I don't know about you, but I wasn't one of the lucky 8 to get superpowers. Also, nothing happened on Christmas that changed our lives forever. Just that air fryer I got, that things made life so much easier. In our 4th spot today we have the bunker. Now there are top secret bunkers all over the world. You got doomsday bunkers, military bunkers, you name it. But apparently in 2024, a 35,000-year-old bunker will be discovered. The time traveler didn't mention exactly when or how, but he did say that it will be found in Argentina. What is in this bunker, you ask? Well, according to them, the bunker has many secrets inside of it, such as ancient times, technologies, hidden codes, and more. I mean, it won't be of much use to us, but I'm sure it will be of peak interest to scientists and archaeologists. Moving on to number 3, we have the green sky. The TikTok user That One Time Traveler has made a number of interesting predictions, this next one being one of them. They said that we all must remember August 20th of 2022. So mark it in your calendars right now, folks, because on this day, the sky across all of Earth will become a bright green color, and that is due to the fact that a planet not too far from Earth will explode. The planet is apparently full of green rocks, and so its explosion will turn our sky green. He continued on saying that the green sky will last for about 5 hours before slowly fading back to blue. Now, a green sky seems pretty cool, as long as it's like a light green. You know, sage is a very nice color. Forest green, on the other hand, maybe not. Hey, but at least he didn't say that the green space rocks will come flying towards Earth, so that's positive. Coming in at number 2, we have the year 2714. According to this next time traveler, who has not yet revealed their name or identity, they are from the year 2714. Now, chances are we won't be around for that year. I mean, unless scientists come up with some life-preserving device, but still, who would want to be around for thousands of years? I'm sorry, not me. Anyways, if you want to know what life will be like in 2714, then here you go. According to this time traveler, in the year 2714, an alternate universe will be found, and same with a human fish species. So I'm thinking mermaids, okay? We'll find out that mermaids are real by 2714. That's kind of sad though, like I want to be around to meet them. Honestly, as a kid, I wanted to be a mermaid so badly. Am I the only one? Let me know in the comments below. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Y2K disaster. Now, John Teeter had a lot of predictions for the early 2000s. Not only would there be war, but he posted some weird warning message that had people worried that the end was near. The message he posted went as so, and I quote, "If you want to survive the coming conflict, learn to let fear keep you alive. Too many of you turn off the life-saving natural instincts and premonitions when it's convenient. The same person who has 5 deadbolt locks on their door will think nothing about getting into a parking garage elevator with a total stranger. If you want to live, keep your eyes open." I mean, it's good advice, but also, why was he warning people? He was telling people to be cautious and saying only some people will survive. Now, a couple of disasters did occur in the early 2000s, but we don't know if they were what John was warning us about or just a coincidence.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have KV55. This is a tomb that is referred to by a number rather than a name because we don't actually know who lies inside of this tomb. While this tomb had its modern discovery in 1907, we still haven't quite found the answers surrounding this mystery. To make things a little more eerie, while the walls of the actual tomb are bare, which is bizarre, as you walk down the steps towards the tomb, you'll notice that there are some markings leading up to it. You'll see inscribed on the wall of the entrance the words which can be translated to, quote, "The evil one shall not live again." If this wasn't enough to give an unsettling feeling, the coffin inside of the tomb has been desecrated, with part of the face having been removed. So all in all, we don't know a lot about what's going on down there, but it doesn't seem good. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Ancient Curse. For this one, we have a good old-fashioned curse that was unleashed from the inside of a tomb. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but there really was a curse found on the inside of this tomb. The tomb of Ankh-Mahor, who was a pharaoh's official who is thought to have lived around 4,000 years ago during Egypt's 6th dynasty, was an above-ground tomb that was shaped like a rectangular box. Inside of the tomb, they found a curse inscribed that warned anyone who dared to disturb it. The curse, roughly translated, states that anything a trespasser, quote, might do against this, my tomb, the same shall be done to your property. It then goes on to warn the trespasser of his knowledge of spells and secret magic, and it threatens to fill impure intruders with a fear of seeing ghosts. These kinds of curses have been found in other tombs, and while they certainly are nothing like the ones depicted in horror movies about mummies, it still might be a little unnerving to those unearthing this discovery. In our number 8 spot today, we have chapter 17. Archaeologists had a large and very exciting discovery as the 4,200-year-old funerary temple of Queen Nerit, who is the wife of Pharaoh Teti, was found. The recently excavated Saqqara necropolis was stocked full of incredible treasures. Inside there were over 50 wooden sarcophagi, there was a board game, a riverboat with rowers, statues, wooden masks, a shrine dedicated to the god of the dead, Anubis, and there was a burial sanctuary dedicated to the queen. And while all of these finds are truly unbelievable, one of the most fascinating to researchers was a scroll from the Book of the Dead. The 13-foot-long papyrus scroll, which was referred to as chapter 17 of the Book of the Dead, acts as a chilling guide to the afterlife. In our number 7 spot today, we have Skara Brae. This is an area that is located in Scotland, and it was found in an exceptionally surprising way. In 1850, there was a huge storm that hit Scotland, and it was so bad that around 200 people passed away from it. The next day, however, once the storm had passed, residents of the Orkney Isles began to notice that a part of a cliff had dislodged, but it uncovered a sort of hidden settlement. Tests were able to date this site back from 3,200 BC to 2,200 BC, and it was shown to have been inhabited for about 600 years. There were round stone homes here, and the roofs were made out of whalebone and peat. The design of this little city suggested that there wasn't a hierarchy, but rather a group of people living peacefully as farmers, herdsmen, and traders. While this site is small, the houses are in quite great shape for the amount of time it's been. This little settlement is Europe's most complete Neolithic village, and while it is older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, it's been called the Scottish Pompeii because of how well preserved it is. No one is exactly sure why the residents of this village abandoned it, which is a really unsettling realization made by researchers. Signs point to perhaps a change in climate that might be responsible for the sudden disappearance, but some signs also point to a storm that might have been the reason those living here had to leave in haste, which is deduced by how all of their belongings were just left behind. In our number 6 spot today, we have the scratch marks. When archaeologists opened a tomb they had located dated all the way back to the Qing dynasty, they certainly did not expect to find what was inside. They weren't shocked to find the remains of a person, but what was shocking was the state that she was in. Her skin had turned black like charcoal, and she had a terrifying expression on her face, with her mouth wide open like she had been screaming. To make matters even worse, apparently there were scratch marks that she had left on the inside. Further research showed that it is believed that this woman suffered from a difficult birth, and during labor she fainted. Since childbirth used to be way more dangerous of an activity, it is thought that her family believed she had passed away, and they then buried her, and of course, you know the rest. What a horrifying story for everyone involved, and to see these signs of her trying to escape is simply just awful. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Tomb of the Sunken Skulls. In 2009, archaeologists were excavating the bottom of a prehistoric dry lake bed in Sweden when they began to find the foundations of some sort of stone structure. Yeah, we're talking about a tomb found at the bottom of a lake. Further research began to unearth the usual things like animal bones, stone tools, and that sort of thing, but they also uncovered skulls belonging to 10 people that are believed to have lived 8,000 years ago. They found another 11th skull buried deep within the mud, and when they uncovered it, they found that fragments of another one of the skulls had been deliberately lodged inside of this 11th skull. Almost all of the skulls were jawless and were mounted on stakes. There are a few theories as to why the skulls were here, and some people believe that this site may have been used for secondary burials, but others believe that this tomb belonged to enemies that were killed in combat, and the skulls were there to send a message. Either way, researchers were rightfully shocked when they unearthed this tomb. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Ancient Karen. Alright, this really isn't very terrifying. This is probably the item that made me laugh the most while I was researching for this video, and it comes to us from 1750 BC. This is a clay tablet that features a letter written on it. The letter is written in Akkadian cuneiform, and it was sent to the ancient city-state and was made by a customer named Nani, who was sending it to a merchant named Ia Nasir. Basically, this is the oldest known customer complaint letter. Imagine how much work this took. Like, they couldn't just go online to a 24/7 chat and complain. They had to find a big stone tablet, carve out the Logo Sibyllic script, and then somehow get it delivered to the merchant. Like, that's a next level Karen right there. Basically, I guess this merchant guy would travel around selling his copper, and on one particular occasion he agreed to sell some to Nani. Nani sent his servant out with some money to pick up this copper, but when he got there it wasn't good enough quality, so he didn't end up buying it. So now Nani was irritated and wanted to complain about the poor copper quality, and he complained that his servant was also treated rudely during the entire ordeal. He said that at the time of his writing he had not received any copper, but that he had paid the money for it. I don't know about you guys, but I kinda like the drama of ancient Mesopotamia. In our number 3 spot today we have the ancient tomb art. This tomb comes to us from a long time ago, and it was located in the Shamir Heights in northern Israel. The tomb is large, and it is made up of 400 tons of boulders, and it stretches 60 feet wide. This chamber is said to date back 4,000 years, which is a shocking discovery because that means that humans may have been a part of an organized society in this area all those years ago. There are many paintings that have been found inside of this tomb, which made this the first time art had been documented inside one of these chambers in the Middle East, which is incredible, but we just haven't exactly been able to figure out what they depict yet. Inside of the chamber there were the remains of 3 people. One of the most fascinating parts of this discovery is that there are these lines carved into the ceilings that are all connected to one arc, but we just don't know what it means. In our number 2 spot today we have Heraklion, also known as Thonis to the Egyptians. This was an ancient city that was located near the mouth of the Nile River. Greek legend says that this was the city where Hercules took his first steps into Africa, as well as the place where Paris hid Helen before the Trojan War began. This is all to say that, to legend, this city was super important, but aside from legend, no one knew where this place was or how to find it. In 1999, after 5 years of searching, archaeologist Frank Gaudio located the ruins of the city underwater as they had been submerged in the ocean. After finding this location, many things were revealed. The most unsettling of all is the discovery of what happened to the ancient city. As it turns out, just over 2,000 years ago, there was either an earthquake, a tsunami, or a combination of the two that hit the city and submerged it underwater. It used to be believed that Thonis and Heraklion were 2 separate places, and that both were located on what is now Egyptian mainland, but neither of those things turned out to be true. Since then, excavations and explorations of the ancient city have taken place, and it was stocked full of some incredibly cool treasures from thousands of years ago. In 2010, a type of ancient Nile riverboat was found here, and even just recently in August of 2021, it was announced that wicker baskets that contained fruits of the duum palm tree as well as grape seeds that date back to the early 4th century BC had been found among the ruins. In our number 1 spot today we have the droughts. Ancient drawings and writings were found covering the walls of the Dayu Cave, which is located in central China, and a lot of them detail different droughts and such that were experienced during the time of their writing. According to these drawings, people would come to the cave for either water or to pray for rain in the times of drought. The writings reveal some of the horrors that the people of the time experienced while going through these periods of drought, including severe starvation, social instability, and conflict between government and citizens. While these cave writings show us a difficult time in history, researchers say that the stalagmites that were also found in the cave may show a grim prediction for the future. Since stalagmites are formed by dripping water and they form rings, sort of like how trees do, these rings can give us insights into different things. Based on the patterns of these rings, scientists were able to corroborate the things that the cave writings were saying, but they were also able to make a grim prediction for the future, which is that unfortunately the region may again see one of these catastrophic droughts, this time in the late 2030s.